But again, this is a great way to spend a Friday afternoon into evening. The Prime Minister will be with us shortly, along with the Minister, Favour Williams. Representatives from the JTA, good afternoon, and all the children's services as well, good afternoon to you. All right, so when next you hear my voice, it'll be time to officially begin our town hall. Good afternoon once again, everyone. Please stand for the playing of the national anthem of Jamaica. As I say, it's the best national anthem anywhere in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, remain standing as Pastor Michael McAnuff Jones will lead us in the opening prayer.
Good afternoon, everyone. I deem it a privilege to be asked to deliver this opening prayer. But allow me to thank Mr. Robbins publicly for rescuing my son when he was at another school. I pay tribute to Mr. Robbins and all teachers here today, and I'm truly grateful. I feel like I'm among friends. I had the privilege of chairing the merger committee of the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, and being here today is just another opportunity for me to offer support to my country. Father, we give you thanks today for the opportunity to gather together around the business of the nation. Lord, indeed, God, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. Father, we are honored to be able to gather together as citizens, Lord, as stakeholders, Lord, as people who have joint custody and co-custody, Lord, for the affairs of our nation. We gather with our leaders. Father, we pray that the deliberations that happen today will be fruitful, they will be robust, but fruitful. Father, we pray that our conversations, Lord, will benefit from the best consensus that is possible. Father, we pray that this will be an environment where diverse views will contend, and that, God, we will leave here today much better for having come here to discuss the business of education and the future of it in our own country. Father, this is core for us, a people who have traveled a long distance and a people who have a far distance still to go. But we thank you, Lord, for all that you have done in bringing us to this place. And we pay tribute before you in your presence for those who have given of themselves, the sacrifices of our teachers who have done many things and who could have done other things, but have committed themselves to educating the children of the nation. So, Lord, we pray today, as we commit this time to you, that you, O God, will be pleased with our deliberations, and that, God, what emerges from this time will be of lasting benefit, that the short-term, medium-term, and long-term benefits of this deliberation will inure to the success of this nation and become legendary for all time. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Wow, what a beautiful Friday evening it is. And we'll begin a conversation that is very important. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Education, Time for Action, the first town hall with Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, and of course, the Minister of Education and Youth, the Honorable Favour Williams. My name is Naomi Francis, and I'll be your moderator this evening. Let me first do the official salutations as we await the arrival of our main principals. The Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister. The Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Education and Youth. The Honorable Robert Morgan, the Minister without portfolio in the ministry, I beg your pardon, in the office of the Prime Minister, which is actually still a ministry. Mrs. Maureen Dwyer, the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education and Youth. Dr. Kassan Troop, the Chief Education Officer Acting. Pastor Michael Jones from Christian Life Fellowship. Mr. Wayne Robinson, the principal of Jamaica College. And at the entrance to Jamaica College, it says, the home of champions. Thank you so much at your school. Ms. Danielle Jordan Bailey, the president of the Jamaica National Secondary Students Council. And may I pause to recognize the presence and entrance of the Minister of Education and Youth, the Honorable Favour Williams. Mr. Justin Campbell, the head boy of Jamaica College. Members and staff of the Ministry of Education and Youth, the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, and the Ministry of Health, all affiliated ministries who would certainly have related issues to deal with education. Heads of agencies that fall under all three ministries, other education stakeholders, executive heads of public and private sector organizations, performers, representatives of the media, students. I have to recognize you specially. Thank you for being here. Give yourselves a round of applause. And of course, a part of the lifeblood and collaborators and partners in the education system, or teachers. Thank you so much for being here. Give yourselves a round of applause as well. And may I add, pretty and beautiful people in the audience, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you. We did this already, we have to do it again? Good afternoon to you. Oh, it's so nice. Thank you so much. As I said, this evening is an evening that is important, and I cannot see any other reason to be here, and I can't even imagine any other way of spending, any better way of spending a Friday evening than in service to our country and our children in speaking about education. So this afternoon into evening, we're going to have a conversation with the Prime Minister, with the Minister, about education. Education matters, to help you understand what's going on, and for us also to get feedback from you through your questions and comments. And later on, as the program progresses, I'll outline how we'll do the question and answer segment. But without further ado, and certainly to do the official welcome. I know him long time. He really is a transformative educator. Mr. Wayne Robinson, I beg your pardon, Wayne Robinson, the principal of Jamaica College.
Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Minister of Education, Youth and Youth, Honorable Favour Williams, other members of Cabinet, members of Parliament, permanent secretaries, heads of agencies, members of our parent ministry, the Ministry of Education, special guests, educators, parents, guardians, students, members of the media. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to Jamaica College, the School of Champions. You can clap, you know. I especially welcome you to the Carl Hendrickson Auditorium. The Prime Minister speaks a lot about the public-private partnership in education, and this is an example spearheaded by the Honorable R. Danny Williams and sponsored primarily by Old Boys, led by Carl Hendrickson. And this is an example of that. I want to say welcome, and especially I agree with Naomi, there's no better way to spend a Friday evening than having a conversation about education, and the theme is a time for action. And what better time than at the end of the completion of the first week of school, where we've had to manage the things that we faced this week and look to the solutions and have a conversation about where we go from here and how we all deal with the most important part of our development, the growth of our youth. I want to say it is especially important for us at this time that this conversation takes place. We have faced probably through COVID the biggest gaps we have had in education for the longest time. But you know the greatest thing? The students are back here and on the many campuses, face to face, being the beneficiaries of that kind of pedagogy, and also the beneficiaries of what we've learned through COVID. Again, I want to say to the Prime Minister, he has developed a very good habit of visiting Jamaica College, and the Minister also has that habit, and we want them to keep it. It is our honor to have you here. The doors of Jamaica College will always be open to conversations like this that will develop not just Jamaica College, but the students of this nation. And so my welcome underscores that. Come anytime, even on a Friday evening. Welcome to Jamaica College again, the School of Champions. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wayne Robinson, Principal Acting of the Home of Champions, Jamaica College. And now, ladies and gentlemen, may I ask you to stand for the arrival of Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness. May I also recognize the presence of Senator the Honorable Orbin Hill, the Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce, who's here with us. Very important as our students understand the digital space and the digital economy. Ladies and gentlemen, the Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness. Critical that he is here, leading the discussion on education, a time for action. You may be seated once again, ladies and gentlemen. And now may I invite Ms. Danielle Jordan Bailey, the President of the National Secondary Students' Council, who will give brief remarks. Danielle attends one of the greatest high schools in Jamaica, St. Hugh's High.
Good evening. Allow me to extend greetings to the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Education and Youth, and members of other cabinet members, members of Parliament, permanent secretaries, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. The children and youth of Jamaica have dreamed and reimagined an education system that is inclusive, relevant, and modern. They dream of classrooms that are filled with discovery and cater to their diverse interests. They expect to build a successful future with a solid education. An expert from the Reimagine Education Report 2021 to the Education Transformation Commission. Today, September 9th, is a very symbolic date, as the number 9 often symbolizes the birth of something new. The mantle of addressing the ever-growing concerns associated with the education system is certainly not one to be taken lightly. As such, I welcome the opportunity for students to voice their concerns and recommendations and action to serve as part of birthing of what I believe to be a paradigm shift. Whilst there have been major strides to include the children's voices, we still have to grapple the archaic ideology that children must be seen and not heard. This often discredits our ability to serve as part of the solution. Thus, some students' counselors year after year are often not included in board meetings as per our right. It is for this reason that the National Secondary Students' Council, also known as the NSSC, will be launching our Full Seat Paid campaign to strengthen and train our students' counselors on how to strategically and respectfully advocate on behalf of our peers, whilst highlighting the institutions and administrators that have facilitated the inclusion of the students' voices. 1. The matter of grooming has been a recurring narrative that we believe should be made redundant. I must thank the Ministry of Education and Youth for the invitation to share our recommendations on the policy, but I must publicly highlight that there must be a standardization of the grooming that is reflective of the varied realities of students living in the tropical island. May I repeat? Living in the tropical, beautiful, culturally influenced island. The continued revision and enhancement of the grooming policy should be developed based on equity, equality, irrespective of socioeconomic status of its students and locale. 2. Right now, the set curriculum is one that primarily focuses on the swatting and regurgitating of academic-based knowledge, rather than the development of a student's soft skill. As a lover of mathematics, I am yet to use y is equal to mx plus c in any of my daily endeavors. But every day I am required to utilize time, money, and mental health management skills to ensure that I am properly equipped with the knowledge to carry out my day-to-day activities. It is important for education to include development of time, mental health, and once again, money management skills. Failure to do so will negatively impact our nation's development. As the premier youth-led organization in Jamaica, we have once again have the key to unlocking the pertinent matter. The diversification and extension into higher grades of the self-development related subjects such as HFLE. This should include the establishment of modules that focus on students' holistic development. Students of Jamaica, I prompt you to use this possible opportunity wisely. In closing, while these are only a few of the pressing issues that we face, I trust that our country's leaders will take the suggestions and recommendations into account when planning for us students, and that they will not be treated as mere words. As president of the National Secondary Students' Council, I plead to you on behalf of students island-wide. For years, we have lived in a black and white education system when the fact of the matter is that we exist in an evolved culture of a colorful society. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to once again advocate for the needs of the students and our future leaders. Thank you.
Daniel Jordan, thank you so much, and thank you for those very thoughtful words in beginning the conversation this evening. And of course, your words, full participate instead of participating for students. Thank you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, to continue the conversation, another student, Mr. Chad Lorne, President of the Students' Council at Mona High.
Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Minister of Education and Youth, Honorable Favour Williams, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. The Honorable Favour Williams, Member of Parliament, was appointed the Minister of Education and Youth in 2020. A chartered financial analyst by profession, Mrs. Williams' amazed years of experience and accomplishments working in the investment sector locally and internationally with major financial companies prior to the start of her political career. Mrs. Williams was first elected Member of Parliament for the St. Andrew Eastern in the 2016 general election. On March 7, 2016, she was appointed State Minister in the Ministry of Finance and Public Service. In February 2019, Minister Williams was appointed Minister of Science, Energy and Technology. She made history as the first female to be appointed in those positions. Mrs. Williams has a Master with concentration in Finance from the Wharton Business School at the University of Pennsylvania and a Bachelor of Arts in Economics from the Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. She remains committed to the improvement of the education system in Jamaica. She successfully launched the Own Your Own device program in 2020. To date, more than 28,000 devices have been distributed to students and teachers. She is also far advanced in piloting the game-changing Jamaica Teaching Council's bill and has partnered with church organizations in advocating for character education to be added to the school's curriculum. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome the beautiful, the awesome, the fantastic, the Honorable Minister of Education, Minister Favour Williams.
No, I didn't pay him to say that. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Chad Lorne, student from Mona High School, for that introduction. Let me begin by acknowledging our Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness. Let me acknowledge as well Senator the Honorable Auburn Hill, Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce. Let me acknowledge Minister Robert Nestor Morgan, Minister of Information, all the other cabinet ministers who are here, members of Parliament. Let me acknowledge as well Mrs. Maureen Dwyer, a Permanent Secretary acting in the Ministry of Education and Youth, Dr. Kassan Troop, our Chief Education Officer acting, of course, our host, Mr. Wayne Robinson, Principal of Jamaica College, School of Champions, where we are this afternoon. Thank you so much for accommodating us. All the officers from the Ministry of Education and Youth, principals, teachers, students, administrators, staff, parents, community members, Jamaicans all, Pastor Michael McAnuff-Jones from the Christian Life Fellowship, ladies and gentlemen here in the physical world and in the online space, a very good evening to everyone. I want to talk to you about the education sector in a way that you've probably not heard before. But I want to talk to you so that we all understand where we are, what we've been doing, and where we're heading. So every year, approximately 35,000 children are born in Jamaica. And each of these has a right to the best education that Jamaica can afford. In order to exercise that right, we all agree there must be schools, there must be places in schools for each of the children who are born in Jamaica. There must be teachers and the important administrative support. There must be parents who value education and see to it that the children are present in school for the 190 days of the school year unless the child is sick. Take those 35,000 children, multiply by each year grade, and you will see that collectively, starting from our early childhood sector through primary and secondary schools, we have approximately 595,000 students. Add to this 25,000 teachers, 15,000 administrators and staff, 6,000 board chairs and members of school boards, and the many students in the tertiary sector of our universities or teachers' colleges. And you can see that we have well over 25%, maybe almost 30% of Jamaicans directly in the education sector. Of course, we also have to count our parents, at least 300,000 strong, who are the key of all the key stakeholders. This, ladies and gentlemen, paints a picture of the enormity of the education sector within our context here in Jamaica. So when we decide on policy directives, it takes everyone in the education sector to play their part in order to see meaningful change in education, not some pulling one way and others pulling another way. If the recommendations are good, if the recommendations are sound, and we say yes to them, let's align ourselves behind them and move with speed to implement. To support the education sector, you, me, all of us as taxpayers agreed that we should spend $119.2 billion for education for this fiscal year, starting April 1, 2022 until March 31, 2023. We also agreed we should spend an additional $3.1 billion to respond to the needs of those children who have to be cared for by the state because of neglect or other abusive situations in which those children find themselves. The $119.2 billion was plus the $3.1 billion make the education ministry the largest ministry, not just in terms of people, but in budget allocation. The investment of all of us in education represents 20% of the non-debt portion of our national budget. In fact, during the pandemic, the education budget was sacrosanct. It suffered no budget cuts despite the significant fall-off in tax revenues as a result of the pandemic. This, ladies and gentlemen, shows our collective commitment as Jamaicans to education. So let me thank everyone for coming out this evening to participate in this town hall with the theme, Education, a Time for Action, here at Jamaica College. We really do appreciate you taking the time to share your perspectives when that time comes, even as we provide updates on what we have been doing in the education sector. After 2 years of being in the virtual space for most of the time, our students streamed into their classrooms in traditional back-to-school style on Monday, September 5, 2022. It was a delightful sight to behold. I visited Marvelly Primary School, Franklin Town Primary, and Mountain View Primary School. Some of our children are in school for the first time. Many are transitioning from primary to high school or to higher grades in the same school. And some are going on to our community colleges or teachers' colleges, universities, and so on. Every new academic year brings a season of hope. And this is certainly true for our students here in Jamaica. Our students are coming back to the classrooms with new skills in navigating their way with technology. Many of your students have been in the coding in schools classes during the pandemic, and many of our teachers have just completed the Train the Trainer coding course. During the pandemic, we worked to get our schools connected with broadband capability so that on returning to face-to-face, more of our schools would have proper internet connectivity. To date, 216 of our schools are connected to adequate internet relative to the number of students, teachers, and administrators in the school. So, for example, Hamwalk Primary in deep rural northeast St. Catherine has internet connectivity. Moravia Primary in Clarendon, Beulah All Age. In fact, 21 schools in Clarendon have adequate internet connectivity. In St. Catherine, yes, 26 schools already have connectivity. Mount Nebo Primary, Mount Rossa Primary, and Infant, Garden Hill Primary, to name a few. In St. Thomas, Hillside Primary is among the schools connected. St. Mary, Jacks River Primary. In Trelawney, Wait a Bit All Age. Falmouth, Infant. St. Elizabeth has 34 schools connected. Pepper Primary, Rosehall Primary, and Gideon All Age are among those who are already connected. And of course, we have schools in Manchester and Trelawney as well. 216 schools connected and counting. So far, in this fiscal year, and continuing all year round, we worked to repair many of our schools' infrastructure. We prioritized 39 schools for repairs, completed 29, and the others are 90 to 95% completed, or the work has been tendered and will soon begin. So King Western All Age, we completed electrical repairs, replaced defective windows, grills, and did some painting. Crichton Primary and Woodford Primary, we renovated their kitchen. Trinity Primary in St. Thomas, we rehabilitated leaking roof, did termite treatment, replaced termite-infested partition walls, and did some electrical repairs. Over in St. Mary, Port Maria Primary, we did repairs to infrastructure damaged by flooding. That included the grade 3 block, timber building, block A, guidance counselor's office, repairs to wall, cupboards, doors, bathrooms, and so on. Abuka High in St. Anne, we treated termite infestation, completed student sanitation facility. In Westmoreland, Retrieve All Age, we completed installing critical security fencing. In Hanover, Chambers Pen, major renovation of timber roofing, treated termites in St. Catherine, and the list goes on and on and on. In our regions, our regional directors have prioritized 98 schools for critical repairs, 102 projects, and we are continuing the repairs of our school. But we know that despite how much we have done, there is much more to be done in terms of repair and maintenance of our schools. And so we have to change our processes to be able to respond faster when our principals call. I've asked the building team to look at packaging similar works. For example, if 30 schools need roof repair, instead of tendering each school separately, why not tender all 30 together? It would be more attractive to contractors than trying to tender one school at a time, where the project of that school may be $950,000, rather than a 30 schools project worth $30 million. So I'm hoping the technical services unit responsible for maintenance can pivot there quickly. We have to build resilience in our infrastructure and respond faster even as we appreciate the work being done. I know our building officers are working, and we need more of them across the 7 regions. Turning to learning recovery, I want to commend our teachers across the length and breadth of Jamaica for the massive efforts at helping the learning recovery. Without your diligence and dedication, the learning loss would have been significantly worse. The suite of interventions included the National Diagnostic Test, school-level learning intervention. We modified the curriculum. We provisioned lesson plans. We had counseling, psychosocial support. We had our yard-to-yard Find the Child initiative. There was professional development for teachers and school leaders. Summer school, extra lessons, homework program, virtual pep camps, televised learning and online learning through partnerships with educational service providers, among other educational e-resources. We provided support to facilitate schools implementing recommendations from the National Education Inspectorate for school improvement. Our teachers identified and shared best practices in quality education circles, which is a group of schools in close proximity to each other, and the teachers come together to encourage improvement. We also gave specific priority to supporting low-performing schools. The end result of this has been a seamless transition of our PEP students to high school in the pandemic and now in the face-to-face learning environment, with much more information accompanying them about their level of readiness and whether or not they are ready. We've been able to indicate to high school teachers if our students coming from primary school need some intervention, no intervention, or concentrated intervention. We have our teachers to thank for preparing our students all during the pandemic and now transitioning fully into the face-to-face environment. Last night's ceremony, the Prime Minister's Medal of Appreciation for Service to Education, held at Jamaica House, was a fitting tribute to our teachers, current and retired, our principals and administrators across the education sector. We want to congratulate again the 80 honorees. Your work has not gone unnoticed. Looking ahead, we know that the educational landscape must change. We are no longer limited to the physical classrooms. Many educational technology or edtech companies are now part of the landscape here in Jamaica as well. We know we're living through a technological revolution that so far only existed in sci-fi stories. We know the world is changing fast, and so is the job market for which we prepare our students. New professions are coming and some are going away. Our children now and going forward are born in the digital age. These are young people who do all kinds of things all at the same time, whereas our generation grew up seeing the internet as a tool. These students now are growing up on the internet, so they see it as a place. Our students now represent the technological future of the labor market and will drive trends that we have not yet imagined. So education has to change. So if you hear us emphasizing that the government purchased laptops for teachers, some 8,469 representing 95% of our primary school teachers, and moving now to procure laptops for our high school teachers, it's because we want the education sector to be prepared for these trends. So if you hear us emphasizing the 500 plus lesson plans on our lesson plan platform for our teachers, and the vast array of e-resources available, it's because we want the education sector to be prepared for these trends. I know many of our teachers stay current through the professional development offerings of the JTC and also of the JTA. I know many of our teachers are pursuing their master's and PhD degrees, and I want to encourage you in your many efforts. Where all of these efforts will make a difference is in our commitment to uplifting those of our students who are not reading at their grade level, those students who are having major problems with numeracy, and those students with behavioral issues. In time, we should arrest this problem. Starting with our early childhood sector this year, we have completed an assessment of all our 4-year-old children. We were not able to do this during the pandemic, and so I am very happy that we're able to do this now. Many commendations to Mrs. Deslandes, Executive Director of the Early Childhood Commission and her team, and Dr. Sams Vaughan and her team. The information that we will get will let us know precisely each and every child that is having problems with early reading and early numeracy and are having issues with behavior. We don't yet have the results, but in a pilot study done some time ago, we know that approximately 30% of our children have issues with reading and numeracy by the time they are 4 years old. We can intervene with those children starting at age 4 and continuing with them through primary school. I'm sure you can see how we can begin to dramatically address literacy and numeracy in our schools over time. Additionally, where our efforts will make a difference is in those areas to which the Jamaica Education Transformation Commission is pointing us to align around. Issues such as the ability of our teachers to be able to move to another school without losing benefits because of the restriction in the Education Act and regulation. The Jamaica Education Transformation Commission is recommending we examine these laws. And in that report, there are well over 150 recommendations. Yet, actions need to be guided by correct information. We live in a time where information is spreading. The Orlando Patterson-headed Commission on Education Transformation recommends raising the standards for those who qualify as a teacher. It is not difficult to understand why. Numerous studies globally have identified a quality teacher as the most critical ingredient in a child's learning. We're committed to engaging in dialogue with our school communities, our key stakeholders, and the wider public through a variety of communication channels to get support for the continuing transformation of the education sector. The focus will be on implementing the recommendations of the Jamaica Education Transformation Commission. We've just celebrated 60 years as an independent nation, and we at the Ministry of Education and Youth believe that, notwithstanding challenges, we've made notable progress over the many decades, and this should be appreciated. The debate currently is rightly focused on where it should be, on the quality of education, and how can we enable more of our students to perform at a higher level. Let me just touch briefly on nutrition. This school year, we're trying to feed more of our students. About 95% of our schools have canteens, and we send grants for a high percentage of our PAD students. We're asking our vendors to continue to observe and understand that we want to give our children less sugar. We've partnered with the Ministry of Health and Wellness to bring the knowledge about proper nutrition to our students. Let me note as well the teachers that have resigned from the education system. Some have gone to other countries. Some have resigned from the public schools and are gone to private schools here in Jamaica. Some teachers have chosen to move within the public school system by resigning from one school and taking up offers at another public school. These are the many reasons that we're seeing for the figures that we are getting. We appreciate those who have decided to stay in Jamaica and continue to invest their time and efforts in the education sector. For those who have left for other countries, we understand as well the decisions you have to make We appreciate you also for your contribution to the education sector in Jamaica. We know that we can count on you as diaspora members to carry the Jamaican flag high. We're committed to the continued improvement of the education sector and look forward to the completion of the very massive task the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service has taken on regarding compensation review. And as I close, I must once again implore our parents to ensure that their children follow the school rules. The rules are about discipline in our schools. If there is a rule that you feel is archaic, we ask that you engage the process. Schools have parent-teacher meetings. You can write a letter stating your position. You can have a meeting with the principal or teacher. The students themselves can also engage the process through the student rep on the boards. We must be orderly about the change we seek. Otherwise, we will have uncontrollable chaos. We want to have a good school year this year. Do not take it on yourself to send your child in uniform or shoes that are contrary to the school rules. So let us agree in 2022 to obey the school rules. All of us in this society have to obey rules in order to live peacefully with each other. School is no different. And I could not end without commenting on the invoices that parents have been getting from schools. The invoices that our schools send to our parents to access taxpayer-supported education system are burdensome on the majority of our parents. We understand that if there are goods or services that students have to buy, we get that. We get the fact that you may have to buy a pin, a tie, or other things. But what we don't get is a father who works as a security guard getting an invoice, just a handwritten invoice, for $67,000 without any explanation as to what that goes towards. And he was told that he must pay it by Monday. He wants education for his daughter, but it is out of his reach. We cannot make the government-sponsored education so out of the reach of our children. And so, as a ministry, we are committed to doing all we can within our budgets to provide for our schools. I acknowledge the hard work of our teachers, support staff, school boards, administrators, and parents who work tirelessly throughout the school year to prepare students for success and ensure they have the proper support. Your efforts are both noticed and appreciated. And I want to say again, this school year holds tremendous potential and opportunities for students and education alike. Our government has been consistently clear. The health and well-being of your child guides every decision we make. We are committed to improving educational outcomes and supporting every Jamaican in the pursuit of a sound education. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Minister Williams. And you know, many times when you're going through change and transformation, it's not easily seen, not readily seen. But may I just congratulate Minister Williams and all stakeholders in the education sector for a smooth, not perfect, but smooth start to the academic year. Schools reopening for the first time face-to-face in 2.5 years. Thank you so much, Minister, for leading the cause, and thank you to all the stakeholders as well. And now to introduce a man whose passion is education, who has worked not just to transform education and continues to look at how we can improve the system, but also transforming Jamaica. May I invite Mr. Justin Campbell, the head boy of Jamaica College, to introduce our main speaker, Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness.
Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Minister of Education and Youth, Honorable Favour Williams, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good evening. The Most Honorable Andrew Michael Holness was first elected Member of Parliament to represent the constituency of West Central St. Andrew in 1997. At the age of 25. Mr. Holness became Jamaica's 9th Prime Minister in 2016. He has pledged to build real partnerships with the private sector, civil society, the diaspora, the opposition, and international partners in order to achieve the vision of shared prosperity for all Jamaicans through inclusive economic growth and meaningful job creation. Prior to assuming the awesome responsibility of leading the nation, Mr. Holness worked steadily at various levels of the political and governance systems. He has focused on several key portfolio areas, including social welfare, community development, housing, and education. However, it is in the area of education that Mr. Holness found his passion and distinguished himself both as the opposition spokesperson on education and in the cabinet as Minister of Education. He brought national attention and focus to literacy and instituted several programs to place Jamaica on the path to universal literacy at the primary level. Under his watch, Jamaica saw the introduction of the Career Advancement Program, a post-secondary technical and vocational training program for unattached youth. However, some of Mr. Holness's more fundamental reforms to the education system include the establishment of institutions such as the Jamaica Teaching Council, the National Education Trust, the National Education Inspectorate, National College for Education Leadership, the Centers of Excellence Program, and the Alternative Secondary Transition Education Program, designed to support students falling behind in general education. With a Master of Science in Development Studies and a Bachelor of Science in Management Studies from the University of the West Indies, Mona Campus, Mr. Holness brings a vibrant, pragmatic energy to the transformation of public sector administration and to making government more agile and responsive. The focus of his government is to grow the economy, create jobs, and improve the well-being of Jamaican people. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome our Prime Minister, the Honorable Mr. Andrew Holness.
Thank you for your introduction, Justin. Honorable Minister Favour Williams, Honorable Minister Aubin Hill, I saw Honorable Robert Morgan here a few minutes ago, Permanent Secretary, Marine Douane, Dr. Kassan Troop, our Chief Education Officer. Congratulations on your award last night. My friend, Mr. Wayne Robinson, Principal of Jamaica College. How are you, sir? I see the institution is doing well. Very good, very good. Let me acknowledge Ms. Danielle Jordan Bailey, President of the National Secondary Students Council, members of staff of the Ministry of Education and Youth who are here, and members of the Ministry of Labor and Social Security who are also here, education stakeholders, executive heads of public and private sector organizations who are here, good evening. But let me give a special good evening to all those who have taken the time to come to this town hall physically, who have come from all over Kingston and St. Andrew. And I suspect that there may be persons from out of town to participate in this town hall. Your presence here means a lot. And I see in the audience several educators. There are some students here from various schools. I won't attempt to identify the various ties and epaulets and badges. Maybe 20 years ago I would have been able to do so quite easily. But I'm not immediately recognizing all the schools that are here. And let me also acknowledge our listeners who are following us on radio. And of course, we are also streaming live, so let me acknowledge those who are joining us in the cyber domain, in the metaverse, as it is called. I'm happy to be with you this evening to continue the national dialogue about our development. And this evening, we will be discussing education. On my way in, I was listening to a few of the radio stations, listening to the polls and the various perspectives and narratives around the polls. I generally don't pay too much attention to any specific poll. I do, however, pay attention to a series of polls because that is a better indication of where you are trending. A poll is really a snapshot in time, and what was captured on the 9th could be quite different from the 23rd of any month, for example. So the important thing in listening to the polls and the various interpretations is to always place them in context of the history, in context of facts that may not necessarily be brought into the public conversation. So there's one thing that I focus on as I listen to the public narrative, and that is there's never been a government in this context, meaning a government coming out of a pandemic like the last pandemic we have had. We have not fully analyzed the impact of the pandemic on our daily lives. And so that has to be placed squarely in any conversation about the performance of any government. And that is even more so the case when we talk about education. Because the pandemic has disrupted education in ways we have not yet come to terms with. So any conversation about the performance of the government or about the performance of education, the outcomes and the output, must factor in the pandemic. And I started out this evening by welcoming the persons who have taken the time off to be here physically, because one of the things that the pandemic did was to prevent gatherings like this, to prevent interchange and exchanges like this, which are critical to the public understanding of government policy. The town hall. We have attempted to have town halls virtually to keep the conversation, the flow of information, to facilitate the interrogation of government and government policy. But it doesn't work always in the same way as when you have the physical audience in front of you. And so I'm very happy to have this opportunity, and therefore to draw the analogy now. I am certain that our teachers are very happy to be back in the classroom, to see their children face to face. And I'm also very, very certain that our children are very happy to be back in the classroom, to see their friends face to face and their teachers face to face, to get that interaction, that socialization going once more. Very important. But in that 2 years absence of physical interaction, of direct socialization, our routines were disrupted. Disrupted in ways, as I've said, that we're only becoming aware of some of the negative side effects. Recently, I had a group of young people with me. They were the contestants in the Miss Universe competition. Before them, I had another group of young people with me. They were the contestants in the Nurse of the Year competition. And I've had several groups of young people come to see me. And the constant theme coming from speaking to young people is the impact of the pandemic on mental health. Mental health is now being acknowledged as a critical element, not just in public health, but also in educational circumstances as well. And I know as I say that, I see some teachers here and students here nodding. I mean, immediately as children return to school and there is the collision of socialization, we see the difficulty in responding to authority, the difficulty in resolving conflicts. And so we see more fights than normal breaking out. And I'm sure that as the teachers try to manage their classrooms, many of them will see that the conventional tools that they have been taught and equipped with may not be sufficient to bring the classrooms back to order and attention. But there are some other impacts of the pandemic. We've always been talking about the introduction of technology into education. But the pandemic forced us to utilize technology. Now you can't take that back. We went through 2 years of our children being fed knowledge, strictly sometimes, and solely through their digital devices. Many of them did not open a book. Knowledge was from YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Netflix. And the only thing that they lifted was their phone or their laptop or some other digital device. And you're going to find a difficulty in children exercising the patience to go through books to get the information that they need. And the government realizes this, and that is why we are still pushing, even though kids are going back to school, to ensure that every child has a device. But the pandemic also revealed some of the inequalities in our society that would have resulted in some inequities in the society. Not every child was able to access full online learning. In the same way, in conventional education, not every child was able to get the best quality education. In both cases, the income of the household determined the quality of access that the child would get. And the pandemic just threw that open, because I didn't really hear anyone from a household with average or higher income complaining about internet access or a device for their child. But as you went through rural areas, persons with lower incomes or unemployed, their children had it particularly difficult. So as they go back to school, they are even further behind. They were behind already. Now with the pandemic, they're going to be even further behind, because the education loss is more significant for them. So I'm just going through all of this because the national conversation sometimes veers off without taking into consideration context, history, and facts. So, as you gather here today, and I'm sure you're going to be asking me many questions about education, I want the conversation that we will have and the national conversation to be much more enriched by contemplating these issues that I have just raised, the particular one being the pandemic. The post-pandemic situation, no other government has ever faced that. And if you extend the analysis to all other areas in the society, you would begin to understand the magnitude of the challenge that the government faces, many of which are not of its own making. But nevertheless, we are the government and we must deal with them. And any objective analysis of the challenges that we face will show that this government has been dealing with the problems in a creditable and in a way that will result in the solutions being brought to fore to improve the quality of life and the output of our education system. Before the pandemic struck, it was the stated position of the government that we needed to transform our education system. My recollection is that in 2004, we did a national education transformation that was introduced by former Prime Minister Pattison. It was a national program supported by then leader of the opposition, Edward Seaga, and we supported it as a political organization because we saw the challenges that the country faced at the time. At that time, 50% of students leaving primary school were illiterate. And therefore, it was quite clear that an intervention was needed in the education system. So we formed the National Education Transformation Task Force, and a magnificent piece of work was produced in the task force report, and we formed various executing committees from that task force, and we went about changing education. Much of it, of that transformation effort, focused on structure and institutions. Out of that task force, we would have gotten things like the National Education Inspectorate would be one outcome. Structures in how we train our principals, the National College for Education Leadership. And out of that would have come a recommendation from then, 2004, which we are now struggling to implement, the Jamaica Teaching Council. Once again, there's a lot of conversation around the Teaching Council bill, not enough context, not enough facts. This was a recommendation which was agreed upon by all stakeholders from as far back as 2004 and before that. When I became the Minister of Education in 2007, I carried it as far as I could, which was right to the doorstep of Parliament. We formed the Teaching Council organization, so the institution is there that started the process of registering teachers and putting in the standards in place. We developed the bill. It went through a long process of consultation. We reassured all the stakeholders that the bill was not intended to criminalize anyone. It wasn't intended to take away the power of the teacher in the school or the classroom. It wasn't intended to overburden the teacher with regulations. It was about empowering the teacher in an orderly, structured way to give order and form to the profession of teaching. In the same way that there is order and form to the profession of medicine, the profession of nursing, the profession of accounting. That was the intent. And today we are still having this debate about the Jamaica Teaching Council bill. Well, as you know, I am the man to get it done. I am about doing something. Others can talk about it. But one thing, if they ask any poll, who is the Prime Minister that gets it done and has the capacity to get it done and will get it done? My job is not only to come with new things and implement them. I spend more than half my time trying to implement legacies that are unfinished. So I want to put it, when the conversation is going on, to put things into context. Because as I say, sometimes the narrative is very light and it floats off without being anchored in the facts and the realities. So the national effort could have been spent on breaking new frontier. But the national effort of the government, which any institution has limited resources, we have to be focusing on some of these things which should have been done decades ago. So bear that in mind when we talk about education. It is before the Parliament now. We're going through the process. It is being debated, but it is our intention to have that bill passed. It will only improve the profession. It will make our teachers, I hate to put it this way, but it's very important that it be said. It will make our teachers more marketable. It's the reality. Once there is a system that can be standardized, our teachers become more marketable. But once there is a system that is also standardized, it would mean that standards are set. And once you set standards, then you start to enter upon the conversation about quality. So for far too long, the struggle in education has been about access. That has been the real struggle, and for good reason. We're celebrating our 60th year of independence, so we have to look back at our history. We have had universal access to primary education for over 100 years. For over 100 years. But since independence, we have struggled to attain universal access in secondary education. We have made strides. I don't know what the recent figures are, but I would say that we're close to 80%. I see the minister saying 100%. Well, I think the minister means we'll be at 100% now that we have implemented the sixth form pathway program. But, you know, we still have a high level of unattached young people. So though we have made the provisions for universal access now, there's still a significant gap of persons who should be in school and not in school. So we have to tackle that problem. I'm making the point to say that I think we're on our way to solve the access issues. But where we are really having a challenge is to solve the quality issues. Quality is now the real challenge. So this Transformation Task Force report, if you had a chance to read it, is more focused on how do you improve quality. And with that being the core question, there are some areas of focus on institutions, focus on leadership, and focus on resources. Not necessarily more resources, but more efficient and effective use of the resources that you have. And another way for that is accountability. The education budget is the second largest call on the national budget, you know. So it's not about more resources, it is about getting more output from the resources that you're using. And when we start to talk about quality and accountability, there are some people who harbor private fears. And you try to understand because it doesn't seem logical. Why would there be strong opposition to things that are going to improve quality and accountability? That question has to be asked. Why? Again, in the national debate, it must be anchored in the context, the facts, the history, and truth. So, we are on our way with this new transformation report, and I want the country to understand that the government is serious about it, and we are going to move with great instrumentality to have our education system transformed. I want to thank Professor Orlando Pattison, a world-renowned sociologist who took on this Herculean task of looking at our education system and to produce the report. The report recommended that an education oversight committee be established. That committee has been established, and we have asked Dr. Adrian Stokes to take on the leadership of this committee. Again, let me thank Dr. Stokes publicly. This is not going to be an easy task. It is going to demand a lot of time, but the nation is hanging its hope that the oversight committee will do the necessary work and hold the ministry to account and inform the public of the progress. I know the ministry is busy at work in putting in place the various units for implementing the recommendations, and I am told that very shortly, a chief transformation officer will be recruited. I think the recruitment process has started, almost at a completion, and an officer will be selected to head the unit. And that would be a significant milestone in the journey of transformation. Lurking in the back of the minds of the public is, how can the ministry transform the system when it is also in need of transformation itself? Again, the conversation has to be anchored in facts, context, and truth. And it is the truth that the ministry has to transform itself. Because we can't bring in another ministry of education. We attempted to put in place, the name is escaping me now, so I'm seeing the persons who were there at that time when we put in place a transformation. It's called the Education Transformation System Project. In other words, we put in place an entirely new system, which I recall as Minister of Education, the people who I used to work with there used to say, well, that's a second Ministry of Education. But we're not going to take that approach. This time, the transformation must be internal. The ministry itself must embrace the transformation. The ministry itself must see the benefit of the transformation. And the people in the ministry must lead the transformation. So there are questions about whether or not the ministry has the capacity and the capability to do it. Well, these questions are going to be answered because we, meaning the executive of the country, the cabinet, myself and the minister, are intent on getting the transformation through. So if the people are not there, we're going to find the people and put them there. So the message to the Ministry of Education and the people who hold the post there is, you had better embrace transformation. The quality and the accountability of transformation. Because there is no other Ministry of Education than the Ministry of Education that we have. Why are we focusing on transformation? And I'm looking at the bright faces of young people in the room. And when I see these bright faces, I feel so much reassured that the future of the country will be in good hands. When I see young people who are articulate, who are competent, who are brimming with energy, whose head are held high and shoulders square, and they look you straight in the face, and they speak without a second thought, they're articulate, they're comfortable with the language, they know their subject, I feel good. I feel great. I say, yes, the future of my country is safe. That is the answer why we focus on education transformation. But the truth is that you feel the opposite when you see some young people with their pants below their waist. They can't put two words together to form a sentence. And they get angry because they can't express themselves. And all that they know is the nonsense that they glean from social media or the fake news that they are told by other people. And then you start to worry that the future of your country is in jeopardy. Jamaica has both. We have these excellent youngsters here who spoke, but the truth is we don't have enough of them. We have excellent schools that produce high-quality graduates, but we don't have enough of them. So we have an education system that is not standardized. Now, if the education is the portal to the future, it's going to tell you what your future is looking like, then this society will be in conflict. Because you will have two different value systems operating. You will have a value system that says, I respect life. No matter what my conditions and circumstances are, I would never take another man's life. I would never need a gun. You will have a value system that says, I respect my environment. I would never throw a bottle through the window of a moving car. I would never discard my rubbish in the public square. But you have those who don't even give a second thought. When you confront them, they say, but they say they do it all the time. You will have a value system that says, I will work for what I have. I won't look at another man's thing and badmine it. I'll put in my work and I will earn. And then you'll have a value system will say, boy, the system will fight against me. Oh, him have it and me not have it. You see the importance of the education system? But it comes down to simple things like, how do we treat with vaccines? How do we deal with our own health? Do I pack my plate with rice, dumpling, yam, banana, and fatty foods? Or do I say, let me try and make a healthy choice? How do I discipline my children? Do I reason with them or do I beat them? The education system is so important that you cannot leave it up to one set of stakeholders to determine how it will evolve. Because it is the education system that will determine the future of the country in which you live. So education is the long-term solution to all our economic and social problems, including crime and violence, economic growth, social order, improved health choices, and reproductive choices. It's the education system. What are we teaching our children? And how well are they learning? What is the competence, having learned the material? What can they do with knowledge? So the question is our education system producing the quality resources that we need? The answer is, it is producing it, but it is not universal. And that leads to another problem: inequity and inequality in the society. Because when I was Minister of Education, it was clear to me that every parent inside here and in Jamaica agree with what I'm saying. They may not be able to express it as I have expressed it, but they agree. Because they all want their children to pass for the best school. Because they know that the high school is like the portal to the better life chances. So the better your high school education, the higher the probability of your life chances. So the objective of the transformation is to keep the schools that are doing well, please do even better. But we have to focus on those sectors of the education system that are not doing well and lift up their standards, lift up their accountability, and improve their output. That is what the objective is. Because if you want to remove inequality and the inequities of the Jamaican society, then start with equalizing educational opportunities. Not by tearing down those who are doing well, but by pulling up those who are not doing well. Not by hiding the fact that some schools are not getting the full output from the resources that are placed there. But by confronting that, by dealing with accountability and efficiency. So, in the national conversation, I want the country to appreciate and understand that the government is serious about transformation. We already acknowledge it will be a fight because some changes will require greater effort, and not everyone wants to put out greater effort. The changes will hold people to account who are not putting out the full effort. And some people just want to do as they have been always doing and make no change. So there will be resistance. There will be fights. But we are committed to doing it. We have been trying to do this since 2004. Come on, Jamaica. Let's get the transformation of the education system done. But the education system is broader than just early childhood, primary, and secondary. It's actually broader than tertiary as well. And there's a big debate which we have to have about tertiary education and the allocation of resources to tertiary. I won't get into that discussion right here. But there is an element of the society that should be in our education system, but unfortunately, they are not. You remember this term? Them out school. And that would be applying to children at grade 9. Them out school. Not that they have completed and graduated and can show certification. They're just out of school because there's no further for them to go. Well, I think we have largely dealt with that in the education system. You know, during my time as Minister of Education, we ended the all-age for many schools, and they went up to 5th grade. Now, we are completing that journey to ensure that our youngsters have 7 years of secondary education, right? There are some complaints, there are some genuine concerns about it because there's always been a traditional sixth form. And how does this traditional sixth form, which is well established, compare to the additional 2 years? Is it the same thing? Should they get the same resources? These are all issues that I think are well within our scope to resolve. But we cannot deny the fundamental intelligence behind extending the school year from 5 to 7. Get more of our youth in school and keep them there for as long as you can. So I would say to the Minister of Education and the technocrats at the Ministry of Education and our principals that let's work it out. Let's find the right mix of resources to ensure that our children stay attached to an institution of socialization and learning and training for much longer. Listen, if your child is out on the road, running around with friends that are leading them astray, the probability of them getting into problems much earlier is much higher than if they were in schools. Make no mistake, regardless of what you think about even the worst school, it is still a safer place than the corner. Still a safer place than the corner. And with the transformation, we're going to make all our schools very safe places for your children. So I'm talking about those 16-year-olds, 17, 18-year-olds who have completed their secondary education, but we just don't have a place for them yet in the society. They haven't found their way as yet. And remember now, this is a generation that is exposed to information to an extent that no other generation has been exposed to information before. This is a generation whose aspirations and ambition is set much higher than generations before. But the ability of the economy and the society to deliver those dreams and aspirations are much more limited than the state of our economy and society in the past. So there is a higher level of frustration for our young people, especially those who will tell you, I have fulfilled the social contract. I did well. I stayed out of trouble. I got my degree. But I cannot buy a house like my parents were able to do before me. Or I have student loan to pay back. Or I might earn a decent salary, but the inflation is so high. So then you can just bring that down to the person who left school and is not working because they don't have any skills. So they can't articulate in this economy. The frustration is very high with our young people. So government has to take note of that, because you may not realize it, but more than 40% of our population are young people, 0 to 24 years old. Yes. So when we talk about transforming education, this is a social imperative, because as our society evolves, we have to ensure that we empower the minds of our young people so that they can cope with the challenges of the time they presently inhabit and the future that they will create. So a large part of the transformation is, how do we bring in our young people and keep them into training. And so a follow-on from the document that has been prepared by the Orlando Patterson Commission is a study on our post-secondary tech-voc education system. So we are looking at HEART and TVET and how we can expand applications-based education to bring relevant education experience to our kids, to our youth. So that is being undertaken right now as we speak, and that will form a part of the transformation. I want to touch very quickly on fees. I know that there are many schools who are complying with the government's no tuition policy. And I know that there are students who are going back to school with no challenge. But there are some schools who are charging students, parents, exorbitant fees which are exclusionary. Every school in Jamaica, those that are government schools and those that are funded by the government, forms part of the country's public education offering. And public education up to high school, as declared by government policy, is tuition free. No student must be denied access to a classroom and to the teacher that we pay for and to the books that we give them and to the school infrastructure that we fund because they are unable to meet the other costs of the school. If we are truly serious about creating this equal society, then how can we punish a child who, by virtue of their household income, is unable to meet the school fee of the school in which the state places them? The state places a child in a school, not by his income, not by his household income. He is placed there by virtue of his performance. There could be a justified case if you were saying we are placing children in school by virtue of their household income. But that's not the case. We place children in school by virtue of an ability and performance test. So can you imagine if poor children did well on the test, what would happen to the schools who are charging them high prices? Or rather, what would happen to those children? They would be excluded. We have to look at ourselves. It so happens that there is such a high correlation between performance and household income. But if we are to break that, then we need to ensure that all our children have access to a high-quality education. And those who come from poor households, who have incomes in the lower quintiles, that they should be able to go to school without feeling discriminated against by virtue of their ability or inability to pay. I know I've been harsh this evening, but my job is just to tell you as it is. You know, as I said, the conversation floats off, but it's never anchored in the facts and the realities. Of course, the other side of the equation is that there will always be the argument that the government just simply does not provide enough. But that argument is not entirely true. The government has been providing more and more each year. Certainly under my administration, we have been expanding our budgets to education each year. So it is the target for us to properly fund education. But bear in mind, education is the second largest call on the national budget. So I leave those points for us to ruminate on. Again, let me join the Minister of Education in thanking the teachers who have decided to stay in the classroom. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your effort. And thank you for keeping faith with Jamaica. So, as I close my presentation to you, let me recap by saying the government is determined to see the transformation of our education system, to provide a high quality of education, an education that is striving for excellence, but an education that everyone can have equal access to, that is fair and equitable. But more than that, an education that will give our children the socio-emotional intelligence to allow them to be pro-social and productive human beings, to be able to be upstanding, law-abiding citizens, but also innovators and creators to treat with the emerging problems of their society, to create wealth, well-being, peace, and prosperity. We will create that education system. We are determined to do so, and with your support, we will. God bless, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prime Minister, reminding us that the education system will determine the future of our country. And so I say again, I see no other reason, no greater reason to gather on a Friday evening like this to talk about the single most important thing that will shape our future than education. Thank you once again, Prime Minister. Education, transforming education, a social imperative. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to continue the conversation, but just to get a little break while we prepare to have the Prime Minister and Minister get on stage, may I introduce to you Mr. Mozen Sutherland. Mozen is a 17-year-old student at the Camperdown High School. He's a Manning Cup footballer and Digicel Rising Star contestant. Mozen.
Good evening, everyone. Honorable Prime Minister Andrew Holness, Minister of Education and Youth, Mrs. Favour Williams. I am Mozen Sutherland. I am 17 years old, a student of Camperdown High School. As she said, I am a Manning Cup footballer and a contestant of the Digicel Rising Stars. Not a second or another minute, not an hour or another day, but at this moment with my arms outstretched, I need you to make a way, as you have done so many times before. Through window or an open door, I stretch my hands to thee. Come rescue me. I need you right away. I need you now. I need you now. I need you now. I need you now.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mosen Sutherland, Digicel Rising Star contestant and a fine Jamaican talent. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have the question and answer segment. We're really continuing the conversation. And so I know there are lots of questions to be asked on education matters. And we also have, along with the Prime Minister and the Minister, resource persons from the Ministry of Education, from the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, and I believe the Ministry of Health, who would also be here to answer some of your questions. May I, before we ask the Prime Minister questions from the floor, persons in the House here today at the Carl Hendrickson Auditorium, as well as taking questions from those online, let me just outline for you some of the ground rules going forward. On the floor, we'll have 3 microphones. We ask that you raise your hand to be acknowledged, and once you're acknowledged and the microphone comes to you, we ask that you identify yourself and your institution, that you are succinct in your question, and that you are respectful in your conduct. To ensure that we get in as many questions as possible, we ask that you ask 1 question at a time. If you have a follow-up question, may I ask that you raise your hand again and wait to be acknowledged. Tonight, we want to especially hear, too, from our students, our young people in the audience. And so we want to hear your questions and comments so that we can guide and shape the future of our education system. Again, we'll take questions from the floor and, of course, questions from social media. And may I once again welcome those on social media. At this point, I see almost 1,000 persons viewing on our various social media platforms. And so may I ask those who are standing at the back to please take back their seats. And let's begin our question and answer segment. May I ask the Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, along with the Honorable Favour Williams, to grace us on the stage. And now, ladies and gentlemen, may I ask that you raise your hands if you do have questions. I will acknowledge you. We ask that you quickly take your seats and just get ready to ask. May I start off then, as you begin to calm yourselves, meaning get back to your seats. I'll start with a question from social media. Ladies and gentlemen, may I ask you resume your seats for those who went to the back to get some refreshments. A question from Winifred on the JI's Instagram. She asks, our student-to-teacher ratio per class is overwhelming. Our teachers are overworked and underpaid. Can you address this? May we ask the Minister, Williams? And of course, we do have resource persons, the Permanent Secretary, the Chief Education Officer, among others, who are here with us as well. Minister?
All right, thank you for the question about student-teacher ratio. If we look across the education system and we break it down, if we look in our primary schools, we have a student-teacher ratio that is in line. Where we have a problem would be in some of our larger primary schools, especially those that are still on shift, and we have some of those in the system. We'd love to transition all of those that are on shift. That is where we see the problem, but it's not a problem that is sector-wide across our schools. There are some schools where we have excess teachers as well, but we have to deal with those primary schools that are experiencing the problem of having many students in the class, 35, 40 per teacher. That is a real issue that we have to pay some attention and bring some resources to.
Thank you, Minister, for that response. Let's start then with my left, a question on the left side. And again, I did ask if, we would allow as well our students, our young people, if they have questions, then certainly we'll take from them as well. But ma'am, if you could identify yourself, and if you're representing an institution, please say so and ask your question.
Prime Minister, Minister of Education, My name is Vivian Young. I'm a parent. I have 2 students at Excelsior and 1 at Kingston High. Now my question is, I want to know if the 2-year extension was for the children who can perform or the one that is slow. My reason for this is because I have a child that when he do exam, when he was at primary school, he was working for a cash pot number. If you don't understand what cash pot means, it means that if any subject you do, you don't get more than 36. Now this child is attending Kingston High School. The teacher chose him to do 3 subjects. He passed 2 and failed 1, get a 4. To my surprise, I got to the school today for him to get in the 6th form now and was told that he has to have 3 subjects to continue. So I want to know, who was it for? Because I don't understand. I think more or less the continuation for especially children who was going to the non-traditional high school would more or less get maybe a subject where art would come in and train them. So I don't know. I don't even know what to do now because I don't want him at home. And he only has 2 subjects. So what am I as a parent to do?
That's a very good question, and I want to ask Dr. Troop to come in on this as well. That's the purpose of us creating opportunities for students who get to grade 11 and find themselves in that situation. We have indicated that if they are attending a school that does not have the space to accommodate them, we simply ask the school to work with the coordinator at the school, the 6th form coordinator, to help our students to find schools that will accommodate them in terms of what it is they're looking to do. Dr. Troop, just add to that, please.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for that question. And it just goes to show that there is a need for the 6th form pathway program. We will have students who will not get the 5 or more CXC to matriculate for the traditional 6th form. Your son, your child has qualified for the Pathway 2 program. And we will definitely need to speak with you after this meeting. I have my technical director here for Region 1 who supervises the 6th form pathway program in all the high schools. But just to share with our parents, this is precisely why the ministry moved in this direction. We are cognizant that not every child will move at the same pace. And so pathways, learning programs must be created for them. So pathway 1 is a traditional 6th form, 5 or more subjects. And you heard the Prime Minister, we are not touching that program. Continue to do what you do. Pathway 2 will be for those students who have 4 or less, 1, 2, 3, 4 CXCs. With or without your math and English, there's a place for you, there's a program for you. And if you didn't get any at all, there's a pathway 3 for you. And we will get you into that language and literacy program. We will get you your CSEC subjects done, and you will get 2 additional years of studies to improve your output and outcome in society. That's why we have this learning program, and I'm glad you have spoken about this today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Troop. And may I just add, Dr. Troop is celebrating a birthday today, so happy birthday to you, Dr. Troop. May I just add...
So, Naomi, just to be clear for the parents, that there is a pathway, an option, a provision for your child. The school or the 6th form coordinator needs to be contacted and give you the proper guidance and advice. And I think the ministry has to do a little bit more in ensuring that our parents understand that the program tries to capture all our students, regardless of the subjects that they may have attained. The matriculation requirements are structured according to the pathways.
Thank you, Prime Minister. There's a follow-up online just to that. I'm watching the online questions as well. Patrina is asking, okay, then when will parents be notified? So it is the case, Dr. Troop, that the schools will contact the parents, or the parents should be proactive and contact the schools? The mic is coming to Dr. Troop.
Right, so we're asking our parents to just go and visit with your school. Prime Minister made mention of the sixth form pathway coordinator. Each school is accustomed to having a coordinator. To support this program, we allowed our principals to engage another coordinator because it will take some more human resource to operationalize the program. So there is supposed to be an additional sixth form coordinator in the school to help you. Now, I will say that not all our high schools, and I know my minister will speak to it later, will be able to retain all our students. And we have been saying that from the beginning. This is why we partnered with the tertiary sector. Our tertiary sector is underutilized. When we did the space audit, we can accommodate over 25,000 students in the tertiary sector. So there's no need to build. What we need to do is to partner to maximize on the resources, and that's what we have done. So if you are not able to be retained in your high school, we still have a place for you. Our sixth form coordinators have mapped the high school with the close by tertiary institutions. And we have even said that if those institutions don't offer what you want, and there's an institution elsewhere that offers what we want, we would want to put you onto that institution as well, because we still need to respond to your interest and not just a program of study. You must want to do this. It must be your bailiwick, your natural ability and pursuit. So that accommodation is made as well. So visit your school parents, get the necessary information. If you're not getting through, visit your regional office in your parishes. We have a regional office, and our officers are willing to help you. I know from experience, parents have been coming to us that it might not be what you expect based on the relationship from time to time, but we have an officer in every regional office ready to treat with your challenges. Visit your school. If you're not feeling comfortable with what you're hearing, visit your regional office. Somebody is available to make sure you can transition. Your child has a space in this country at this time to continue his or her education.
Thank you, Dr. Troop. I see many hands going up. Let's take someone from the center. I believe the mic is there. If you could identify yourself, and if you are representing an institution, one question per person.
Hi, good evening. My name is Daniel Thomas. I speak as a parent, a concerned citizen, and the president of the Love March movement, which is a youth Christian organization for sexual purity and the family. I would like to greet the Prime Minister, the Minister of Education, the technocrats, all the other ministers, parents and teachers, students, concerned parents, etc. Good evening. The mic I run away from me. Pull it up, yeah. All right, so concerning this issue, the JCHS, which is the Jamaica Coalition for a Healthy Society, has written to the Office of the Prime Minister in July 2021 and May 2022, and to the Ministry of Youth and Ministry of Education and Youth in May 2022, and with no response. Why is the Jamaican government still planning to sign the ACP EU agreement, given the serious issues with the agreement? For example, CSE, Comprehensive Sexuality Education, as noted in Article 48, Paragraph 7 of the Caribbean Protocol of that document, which would compel us to teach morally corrupt European ideas on sex, family, and gender to students, and is legally binding for 20 years and with no exemption under threat of sanction. We would love to meet with representatives of the MOE and the Office of the Prime Minister to discuss this serious threat to our sovereignty, parental rights, and the minds of our children.
Thank you, Daniel.
20 years.
Thank you, Daniel.
For sure, definitely. We'd love to meet with you to discuss it. I know this is something that is out there in social media. Many persons have been talking about it. We would love to hear more. We'd love to talk with you some more about it. Please come and see us.
But just to be clear, Daniel, I mean, I've been seeing statements made, and I saw a video someone made about this issue, and I inquired of it, and I was told that there was nothing like that. You have raised an issue now, which is of great importance to me, because Jamaica is a sovereign country, and we understand our value systems here, and we want to ensure that we preserve our value system. So I will take a deeper look into what you have raised, but my preliminary inquiries into the concerns that you have raised suggested that there wasn't anything to be worried about, but you seem particularly agitated, and so I will take a second look at it.
Prime Minister, I'm sorry to intervene, but while the comment was being made, the Minister of Foreign Affairs was actually listening, and she wrote to us and said that Jamaica is not going to be a party to any such thing to influence our children in any such way.
That was the assurance she gave me when I spoke to her. So I'm glad that she was listening and was able to respond.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Thank you, ministers. Let me go quickly. I beg your pardon. Let me go quickly to social media. Empress Cap, that's a very good catch, right? So on the PM's IG page, Empress Cam asked, due to the shortage of various textbooks, is it a possibility that textbooks can be provided in digital format through the Jamaica Library Service in an online platform?
Sure. This year, for the third year in a row, we have been able to provide some of our textbooks in the ebook format, and we've indicated that we would like to do more as we go ahead. We can certainly look at our libraries. We have an extensive network of libraries that we could ensure 111 libraries across Jamaica that we could make it available through. Eventually, we'd love all of our students to have access to that resource that we are doing in a much bigger way this year in our schools.
May we have another question? I believe there's a question back on this side, okay. Is the microphone close to? All right, yes, she's on her feet. Yes, go ahead.
Hello, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's not easy being up here, but I can see the Prime Minister when I want to see him. But I remember that he came to my gate and he gave my big daughter a laptop. I can't see you, so I have to come here. Yes. And before I start, off the here, I'd like to say just a bit of your time, something urgent, important. But for now, I'm just talking on behalf of my son. He's a special child, Alex King. He's in the white hat at the back. He's not getting that much education. He's 15 years old, and he's, well, I don't know, it's like underage. He's below level, right? And I need special help for him. I don't know what kind of help I can get as a special child. He go to School of Hope. But he have a ignorancy problem, but he's trying to overcome it. I don't see he's going on that way that he used to go, but he's very slow in learning, bad. And I really and truly need help for him. He's very hardworking. As a special child, he tried to do things himself. He might can't do it well, but he try and he need help. I can't always be there for him because I have other kids. I have 7 kids. And he's a special child. He made the 7 kids. And I'm trying so hard as a single mom. First of all, I put my kids on path. 3 times now I went to get money. The first time I have a problem with my ID, and I reported it to him, reported it to them, and they said they are looking about it. I don't hear nothing after that. The second time around, when I went with my ID to collect, they told me that somebody collect the part in my name. Right? The third time now in September here, when I went to collect the money, I don't get it. They said 4-year time I have to reapply again. And after go home in the rain just to get back birth paper and all that again to do it over. So I said to them, say, if I'm not going to get anything, because I always get it to sort out the kids are back to school.
All right, can I make a suggestion? Because I know we have a lot of resource persons here from the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Labor. May I ask that as soon as we're done tonight, we'll have someone speak with you directly, and in particular that issue with PATH, very critical. Ladies and gentlemen in the audience as well, we've been at this for more than 2 hours. We have to make a hard stop at 8. We are broadcasting live on radio and we've been streaming for more than 2 hours online. Again, there are resource persons. We won't leave when the broadcast stops. We will take your questions to ensure that we respond to everyone. We have questions from social media that will ensure that they're responded to as well. Let's take one more question then, because we are at 7:58 and we have to wrap. The minister will do a wrap up, and then certainly we'll stay back a little bit and answer some questions online once we're done. So one question from the center. Oh, there's a student. So let's take the student, please. All right, so let's go to the student from Arden High, 6th form. Is that Arden? Am I correct? There you go.
Naomi, before we take the question, let me acknowledge Miss LaSonia Harrison, who is
Yes.
in the back. Mrs. Harrison, wish you were up in the front. We didn't see you earlier on. President of the Jamaica Teachers Association. Yes.
Welcome, Ms. Harrison. And now our student with the final question then. Is the microphone on? Let's try again. Do you want to give her this mic? Is it on?
Testing, testing. Thank you. The Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Honorable Favour Williams, other ministers, educators, parents, and students, good evening. My name is Ana Laura Roman Rodriguez, and I am the head girl of Arden High School. My question for you today is, considering the unprecedented education crisis occurring currently in the country with regards to the hundreds of teachers migrating from the classroom, in your opinion, how do you think the future of Jamaica's education will be impacted by the replacement of fully trained teachers with some unqualified and inexperienced teachers?
Thank you from our student.
All right, I know that we've been having much debate with regards to teacher migration. It's not a local issue for Jamaica, it's a global issue. You would have heard, I'm sure, in the news the need for thousands of teachers in countries such as the US and in other countries. We have seen over the last several months some resignations of our teachers, and they've gone to other countries. And we, as I said earlier on, we're sorry to see them go, but we wish them well in what they're doing. We have to keep training our teachers so that they're able to enter the teaching profession. We have to fill the spaces of those who retire, who are at the peak of their experience. We have to keep filling and ensure that we have teachers coming in. We have to focus on teacher quality in our teachers' colleges so that those who come in new into the profession, even though they might not be coming in with years of experience, but they have very high quality teaching coming in. They have new methods. Their minds are opened in a totally different way than those who may be ahead of them by many years. They're coming in more technology savvy than we would have seen those older, mature teachers or in the profession. This is a dynamic world, and we have to respond to all these challenges that we have in the sector. Migration is one such challenge right now, but based on where we are and the flow out of our education, our teachers' colleges, when we look at the graduation this year, there are many who are coming out with specialization in some of those areas that we always talk about having a need: mathematics, computer science, regular science. They are coming out with those specializations from our teachers' colleges.
But just to add again, when we follow the public narrative, we should always try to place the source of concern into context. Remember, every year we have a certain number of teachers who leave the system, whether it is by retirement or people change professions or persons just migrate, not because they're leaving, but they're migrating for other reasons, family reasons. So there is always a certain replacement that is taking place. And invariably, the nature of the replacement is that you're going to have less experienced persons coming in to take up the posts made vacant by experienced persons. And as they gain experience through practice, they may very well become far more skilled than the persons they replace. The test of the system is how well we train our teachers to quickly adapt to the teaching and learning environment. My sense, having been out of the system for a little while in direct contact with the system, is that our teachers' colleges, our universities continue to be quite good at training our teachers in keeping abreast with new ways of teaching, new technology, new systems of learning. And so we are turning out teachers who are quite capable and quite competent. And as they get into the classroom, they will quickly develop the experience. So yes, we ought to be concerned about teachers who are trained with public resources leaving the classroom. But I think as a country, we can take pride that we have a very robust system of training high-quality teachers that other countries would want to poach. And just to add the point, we should be making an industry of training teachers for export.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. So our broadcast partners, Power 106 Nationwide and others, have ended their broadcast. I'm reading the emotional intelligence quotient of this room. And so I know the Prime Minister has to leave, so we'll allow him to leave and we'll spend another 10 minutes in asking the Minister of Education. You'll spend the 10 minutes as well, PM. Okay, all right, so the Prime Minister stays with us. So we thank those on in Radioland who joined us, and we'll continue now live from Jamaica College. And so let's then, I believe there's a child at the back who has a question. Okay, let's come back to this side. Robert, is there someone with a question on this side? I saw Dr. Knife with his hand up, but I'm not sure. I think he would be considered in the center. So let's go to the left again.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Patrina Stewart. I am a youth parliamentarian and a youth advocate. Now, sociologists have attributed the success of countries and societies to the values and cultures of families. My question is, as the cornerstone of society, what are the strategies that are in place to involve our parents and perfectly poise them to support the changes that will be implemented in our education system?
Okay. Thank you for the question. As you know, at the Ministry of Education and Youth, we do have an entity there called the National Parenting Support Commission. And I know that they have been working especially hard during the pandemic to ensure that we get more parental support from our parents for our children. They have a goal of getting in touch with a little over 100,000 parents to assess them, to see what is needed, how can we help them to be better able to support their children in school, to provide those parents with training, with the knowledge, with skills, with values, so that they can in turn transmit those to their children. I know we have Ms. Casey Carr here, and if you would like to add some more to that, that would be great. Go in the front.
Thank you so very much for that question and for recognizing the importance of this partnership that must be in place to ensure we have the successful education system that we want. So just to reiterate what Minister said, we are training parents at present. We have a target of 121,000 parents who we have to train this year. Only tomorrow, we are heading over to Portland to train parents all day tomorrow. This is important because there are many persons who are still not necessarily understanding the important role they play in terms of their involvement in the education lives of their children. And through the commission, what we've been able to do is to explain in very real and simple terms what parental involvement and parental support looks like and how that impacts the quality of the life of the child as the child goes through this important process called education. And so we have been working very closely with the different departments in the Ministry of Education and Youth. For example, we've worked with the curriculum unit. We've staged sessions in mathematics. We've staged sessions in literacy. And we do have results to show that once we explain those strategies to the parents that the children need to understand, that the result is that those children improve exponentially. We do have a very big concern too, not just about academic achievement, but also antisocial behaviors that children display in schools. And so we also need to have this partnership in place so that we can communicate what a shared value system looks like, so that when the school is saying the same thing that the home is saying, then there will be consensus on what is acceptable behavior among the population of students. And that, I believe, will translate into a better society for all of us. Thank you so much for the question, and congratulations on your achievements so far.
Thank you so much, Ms. Carr. Really appreciate it. I did say 10 minutes, so I'm trying to squeeze in as many as possible. I see a question on social media, and because this cohort is not quite readily represented, let me ask the question then. Ms. Andrea Binns Chambers asks, what assistance is being provided for students with, I beg your pardon, for schools with children with disabilities? Again, what assistance is being provided for schools with children with disabilities?
Okay, we'd love for her to be in touch with the Ministry of Education and Youth, in particular, or Special Needs Unit at the ministry. They can help to guide and to direct our parents who have children with special needs.
But Minister, you should say that quite a bit of effort has gone into ensuring that the ministry's Special Needs Unit is expanded and that they have an extensive spectrum of services to deal with all the different special needs. I recall when I was at the ministry, we spent a lot of time on ensuring that we are able to serve. So I'd love to hear from the Chief Education Officer some of the services that are available and how parents can get in touch.
Thank you very much for that question online. I know Naomi is telling me to be short. Okay, so yes, we do have a range of services for our special education students with special needs. We have a special education unit, and we offer several things. First, we have assessment services. In each region, we have a clinical psychologist, an educational psychologist, and a diagnostician. When the Prime Minister talked about building out our services over the years, we have moved into that. And that team we call our student special needs team. We have a special needs coordinator also in each region that works predominantly with the students at the high school level. Every year after PEP, those students who we consider to be pathway 2 and 3, we offer external assessment services in partnership with the University of the West Indies. That procurement process is underway, and those students will be assessed. Approximately 7,000 something students, Terry, on pathways 2 and 3 this year, and those students will be specially assessed, covered by the Ministry of Education at a cost of $29 million. So that's part of the assessment services. We offer placement services. So we have, I think, 11 special needs exclusive schools in the government sector, and we partner with 17 private exclusive special education institutions. And we place students based on their diagnosis. So the parents comes with an educational assessment report, or we provide some support for that to be done. And then we place the students, be it autistic, whatever it is, autism rather, whatever that assessment is, report says about that child, we find a school for that child. And that can run up to 300, 400,000 per year for that child. Sometimes that child also may need a shadow or a caregiver, somebody to be there with that child to prevent that child from harming him or herself, to help that child with bathroom experiences, to help that child with eating. We provide that support. The parent may come to say, we need a shadow. We do the assessment and we ask the parent to find somebody that they think is capable and will stay, and we provide a remuneration for that. This year, Prime Minister, we provided 233 of those last year, and we have seen over 100 persons applying additionally to the 233, and we have responded to that call. We have placed in excess of 300 persons this year in exclusive setting at a cost, fully covered by the government. So we do provide that. Another thing we provide is training for parents. We establish parent committees, parent groups, because we have to help the parents to treat with the situation that they are faced with. It's overwhelming. And so we have ongoing sessions with them. We have online sessions with them. Then we have moved, because of the technology, into accessibility services. So we have converted some of our books onto the e-service digitized platform, and we make sure that the accommodations are available for those students who are blind, who are hearing impaired. Those services are provided. And when the children are doing assessments, this national assessment, we provide what is called accommodation. So if your child needs a writer in that exam, we pay for that service. If your child needs big, bold print, we print the exam paper separately for that child. Whatever that child needs, if a child needs extra time, based on the report, we provide that. So we have a range of services for our students with special needs. Just get in touch with our special needs unit, 612-5700, 612-5700. We are willing and available. And I must say, our minister instructed us, whatever request comes for special need, we must respond. Whether the budget is there or not, we have to find it. And that we have been doing, especially this year since the pandemic. We have had to respond, and the request keeps coming, but we are responding.
Dr. Troop, thank you so much, because it's critical, especially that you respond to questions from the disabled community. Ladies and gentlemen, I told you 10 minutes, and the 10 minutes is out. I have a parent here who has an important question, and since I'm close to with the microphone, I'll ask her to ask the final question again. We'll collect all your questions, and we'll ensure that there are responses given. Ma'am.
Good night, everyone, and my name is Candice Bell Navis. I am a parent of 3. Anyway, I was saying that why is it that the teacher them need so many books, and when they check it out, the kids them not using all of them? Is it 16 books on this list? And go ahead and buy 16 books. You're not going to use all of them? Thank you.
Oh, and the child is in grade 5. All right. Thank you so much. I believe one of our regional directors, is responding. If you could identify yourself, please, and just give a response as we wrap up our town hall tonight.
I will. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, parent, for that question. Just to say that the Ministry of Education, we're responsible for producing 2 lists. That is an approved list, that is that we go through and we have a very rigorous evaluation process, and we determine the textbook that is needed. And then there's a supplementary list, and that list is where we ask the parents to purchase the books to supplement what is already there. All right? So we here at the ministry, what we do is that we go through the book list and we assess and we give approval before it goes out to prevent what is happening. I must say that at times there are challenges, but we try our best to ensure that the books that are on the list, that they are relevant and that they are used. However, sometimes at the school level, for whatever reason, the teachers don't always use or require the students to utilize the books. But we have a team that we go around and we ensure that the books are utilized as best as possible. So with time, you're going to be seeing an improvement as it relates to the number of books that's there, and you may think that it's not used, but it is used some of the times, all right? So we are committed to supporting you and helping you, and you can always speak with me after. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
my
Director.
apologies, my name is Nadine Sims.
Thank you, Ms. Sims.
Thank you.
Prime Minister?
No, this is a perennial problem. I mean, it's been with us since I was going to primary school with, 20 books in a knapsack. It's the Jamaican education system. It's very difficult for a minister of education to say, don't buy books. Books are so important for us to get knowledge. But I think in the information age, knowledge are not only in the form of a book. Right? We have the digital age, and you can carry 1,000 books on your small device. It is something that we have to change our mindset on. All right? Publishing is changing, and books are not only published in hard copy, they are now published in digital copy, and the property rights for them are equally protected, whether it is in the physical platform or the digital platform. So my statement here today should be interpreted in the following way. One, we're not saying don't buy books, but we are also saying that there is a transition happening, and within 5 years, you're going to see most of the content that is required for education on digital devices. It is inevitable. It is going to happen. And that is why the government is spending so much time on trying to prepare the country for the digital society, the digital era, and transitioning from physical copies to digital copies. That's part of the change and moving into the digital world. So parent, have some hope, have some faith that your child probably when she's in high school maybe, that the only thing she will be taking to class with her is her tablet or her laptop, because that is going to be the future of education. That is the future of the world.
Thank you, Prime Minister. And now may I ask the Minister of Education to do a 1-minute wrap, and then we'll give the Prime Minister the final word as we close. And of course, after we're done, while we're walking out, we can continue the conversation, and the resource persons from the ministries are here. Minister.
All right, thank you. I want to just say thank you to everyone who came out this Friday afternoon. We hope that you're leaving with the knowledge, better knowledge about the education sector for your children, for yourself, and that you will be supporting the transformation efforts of the education sector. As parents, you are our key stakeholders. As students, you're also our stakeholders in the system. We want to ensure that we provide for you and that the education that we give you is relevant. It helps you to become more socially aware, socially intelligent, and that because we know that you're going to need the knowledge to function in a complex and ambiguous world that exists. Thank you so much again for your presence, for your many questions. We are looking forward to continue seeing our children in the face-to-face environment, to continue to provide the many services that you need so that you can be successful, you can realize your dreams, and that we will continue to transform the education sector, not just for us who are here today, but for those well into the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister. Prime Minister?
No, I just want to say thank you. It's good to be in this setting again. Good to see familiar faces and new faces. Sorry we didn't get all the questions in, but if you send them to us, we'll try to respond. You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you very much. Hopefully we'll get a chance to do many more of these. God bless you, and I see you around.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Prime Minister. And thank you, audience. You've been a wonderful audience, both in person and online. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been our first town hall, face-to-face town hall meeting, Education, Time for Action. The Prime Minister certainly will have more of these conversations across the country on various topics. Please do have a wonderful evening and a wonderful weekend. God bless you. Good night.